Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for PMPA's Technical Tuesday Solutions webinar. Today's webinar is Driving Improvements with Data and how a PMPA member saved $1.4 million in 11 months, presented by Amper. Just for the attendees out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to use your questions tab on the right of your screen because we will have some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you the good folks from Mitotec and Amper. The floor is yours, guys.
Thanks so much, Joe. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out this morning. Really excited to share the success story and hopefully have y'all walk away with some interesting insights on how Mitotec implemented Amper and just how they overall transformed the business to being more lean and streamlined. So just by way of introduction, my name is Akshat. I'm co-founder and CEO at Amper. We're based in Chicago, and we work with precision manufacturers across the country with real-time data and helping streamline operations. I've grown up around manufacturing my whole life, 4 generations of manufacturing, everything from automotive to plastic components. So I grew up going to my dad's shop floor as a kid, and really excited to have partnered with Mitotec a couple of years ago. And I'm going to hand it over to Clinton to give a quick introduction.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. My name is Clinton Pouillie. I'm the general manager here at Mitotec Precision. I've been in engineering my whole life and in precision machining for the last 14 years. And really understanding data-driven metrics, and making decisions around that. So we were happy to partner with Akshat and Amper about 3 years ago, and we're quite far down the journey, and we're really excited to share our success story. And we've been PMPA members for many years now, and so we do appreciate the organization and what it provides to its members, and we gracefully appreciate the opportunity to share our experience with the rest of the members, and hopefully you guys can get a little information out of it and apply it in your areas as well. I have with me Bob. Bob?
Yep, my name is Bob Fourtounis, Operations Manager here at Mitotec. I've been here for approximately a little over a year. I pretty much tried to implement Amper after I started working here. I've been in management for over 35 years, so I do have a lot of experience as far as in management and lean technology. And I knew that getting data is what we wanted to go, and it worked out real well for us. We've seen, as you can see, the improvements that we've made with Amper. It's just so much easier to pull up the data versus how we used to do it in the past, writing it down on notebooks. So it has improved, and as you can see when we walk through the improvements that we had made.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. So just a bit of background, our goal is to work with manufacturers like Mitotec to transform the way the shop floor runs and really empower folks on the shop floor, whether it's operators, supervisors, CI folks, all the way to folks like Bob and Clinton to make better decisions. And our mission is to unleash the potential. We're at a unique time in manufacturing right now, and every manufacturer is constrained by whether it's labor resources, material resources, or just overall, just a lot of constraints that drive operations. And the goal with data is to focus on the 80-20 and do more with the existing tools that are available. So I want to kind of start the story by kind of framing the challenge. Clinton, we met, about 3 years ago. It would be great if you could just share a bit more on, what it was like then. What prompted you all to kind of think about, digitizing a shop floor. Anything more on the context would be, I think, super helpful.
Yeah. So a little bit about Mitotec. We've been around since 1963. And we're located in a small town in rural Wisconsin, 800 people. So we're not without our challenges like many of you guys face as well. A couple of years ago, We needed to understand better the costs associated with our valuable resources. First being people, understand how we could better utilize people. And going back 3 years ago, it wasn't as much of a crisis as it is today for everyone as well. So we need to better understand our resources of people and how we can apply them, and also our capital equipment. As being precision machine manufacturing, as many of you guys are, you understand that the capital investment isn't cheap. And understanding and utilizing it to its full capacity is very important. So we wanted a system to better understand the data around that. We researched many different places that could do machine monitoring opportunities. In general, machine monitoring, right? We've all kind of heard that term a little bit. And we ended up meeting up with Amper and Oshak because they offered exactly what we needed. We needed great features with a easy justification was the first thing that we took a look at. I remember talking back when we first looked at implementing Amper, and when you really broke down the costs, I looked at the other managers and I said, if we implement this system and we were able to save 1 hour a month on each one of our resources, it would pay for the cost for the whole year. And we all took a look at it and we said, that's not too far stretched. If we were able to save 1 hour every month, a better utilization of either people or equipment, it justified itself. So that was one area that was really important for us. And also the ease of integration. Mitotec, as you can imagine, since 1963, we have many older technologies, and we have many advanced technologies as well. And we needed a system that could easily be implemented across the board, and we could get up and running very quickly. As we implement processes or equipment, we all know that return on investment is pretty important, and the quicker you can start to reach some of those benefits, that's important to have a fast turnaround. And Amper was able to offer those two key features with us. So we started out with 5 machines, and we said, we're going to put them on our most critical machines, right? We're all like, these machines have to run. But being a job shop, about a month later, we all realized that the 5 machines that were important last month, they're not necessarily important this month. So we always found ourselves not having the data that we needed on the right machine. So very quickly, we ended up putting it across the board on all 20 machines of our key pieces of equipment, primary machining applications. And they were all the way from 1989 SAS 16s from Tornos all the way up to brand new Eurotech lathes or even multi-Swiss Tornos lathes. So that's kind of the history a little bit, what we were looking for, and how we got started with Amper.
And Clinton, y'all have like an ERP system and all. What were some of the challenges in that? How were you collecting data on the shop floor before? And what are some of the consequences or challenges of doing that?
Yeah, so we have an ERP system that we use that schedules all our production floor. It also tracks all our labor. So we're actually really good at knowing when the machines were running, were we making rate, earned hours, and utilization across that. But what we lost was what was happening when someone wasn't punched into that machine? What was happening when someone wasn't working on it? We didn't have an understanding. Okay, we earned 16 hours on a machine one day, but what was our potential and what was the difference? And we did a lot of monitoring of people, and we didn't really necessarily link that to the machines. And that's where Amper kind of came in to help us understand the differences. And as we continue to talk through the presentation here, we'll be able to see how we're able to better understand those expenses that aren't easily identified, and how we were able to capture a savings for those and actually use those to drive improvements, ultimately getting us to where we are today.
Mm-hmm. So 1.4 million, it's a lot of money, and it sounds like your team took it in a couple of different steps. Do you want to kind of share at a high level, what were some of the big strategies that you used in achieving this ROI or impact?
Yeah. So as Bob mentioned, he was with us for about a year. So back, and that's almost 11 months ago. So he kind of came in, and but before that, I really wanted to take a look at Amper, and Amper has many features. You can track a lot of different things with it. And again, I'm looking for how do we get the biggest bang for the buck right off the bat? Because you got to get that buy-in of employees, you got to get the buy-in of management, and if you can do that, you can get up and going. So what we really focused on is let's track downtime, and what we classify downtime as any time in Amper you could put a schedule for that machine. Anytime that machine was scheduled to run and it wasn't running. A lot of times people look at downtime, maintenance downtime. Well, we really broke it down differently. And we said, all right, we're going to have a couple different types. We're going to have planned and unplanned, right? And then inside of those, we kind of broke it down a little bit further. And I thought that if we really understand why are the reasons the machines aren't running, we can use that information to justify other things down the line. So that was really where we started. And as we kind of continue here, Bob can talk about, he was very highly involved in implementing that, some of the challenges and stuff like that. So I'll let him talk about that. And then we'll kind of come back in the end and we'll say, what are some of the results and how do we analyze that data so we can make better decisions and we can ultimately drive the company better.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bob, if you want to kind of share a bit more on the data collection piece and how you got the shop floor team to really get bought into this.
Yep.
Would love to kind of hear from you.
Yeah, with that, like Clinton said, when I came on board, we had our meeting and going over our goals for the year. And one of my goals was to improve utilization of the machines by 50%. And that's a pretty big goal. And so I knew I needed data to make that give me some help there. So with Amper, when we had Amper and that was introduced to me, I knew that was going to be a good tool for me to help prioritize the areas that I needed to make improvements. So that's what we worked on. And I'll be honest with you, at first, it's a lot of, working with the people, coaching the people, because anything new is a change and it's hard to get them on board. So what you have to do is show them, what data you are getting and show them why it makes a difference. And when I started doing that, we really could start seeing the improvements and it was really doing it good for us. And then the operators, and we had to help too, because sometimes like the tablets, when we had the older tablets, they weren't very good for the Wi-Fi. So we had to make improvements there. We did different things in the system. You guys was really good as far as Amper, as far as enhancements to make it better for our process. And as we worked through, we really could start looking at the numbers. And it was a big eye opener, even though we knew we had a lot of opportunity. It was eye openers when you really could see the total hours that we were losing and then the cost associated with that. So then we just started working on the big items, and it really showed and paid off for us. And that's where we are. And the operators today, if they have any problems with their tablets or anything, and that's when you know that the system's working, they will contact you right away and make sure that we get that online. Even though I can see data and I track it all the time. I mean, and that's why I really like it. It's not just historical data, it's real-time data. And I like that because I can see when machines are going, having problems, and then I'll get with the leads right away so we can make adjustments right away instead of waiting and being more proactive.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the biggest challenges for any manufacturer is like, lack of manpower and skilled talent. And, I thought this was a really fascinating story where, most folks would kind of write that off as like, planned downtime because we can't fill that role. But you also took a really unique approach where you quantified in a full year, you were losing like 13,000 hours in capacity. And, I just thought that was really, really refreshing perspective to like quantify that because it is a challenging labor market. Clinton, if you want to kind of share a bit more about like, what prompted you to even have that as a downtime code? Because I don't think a lot of folks create that as like downtime, right?
Yeah. So we got pretty creative with our downtime. We had one of them as can't remember if it's unplanned or planned, but need hire. That was one I really pushed for. We put that in there. We wanted to understand mechanical issues with the machine. Process issues was another one that we wanted. Sometimes we run new parts, and tools are breaking. The material has bar vibration. We classify all those as process issues, and our engineering staff is responsible for helping with those. But it was very easy to take a look at all the costs that you write out checks for, right? I mean, those are very easy to look at, ask your accounting department and understand. What we didn't understand was the biggest issue that we were having was need hire. And the reason why I wanted to put that one in there is we actually utilized it to help our management team and our HR department justify some of those costs that are hard to justify. For an example, for skilled manufacturing and machinists, we offer up to a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Well, if you didn't understand the cost of not having that skilled person, when we actually broke it down a little bit further, need hire, we also have need hire for setup, as you can see there. So we have the operators, or we have the machinists to run, but we don't have that skilled setup person to set up that machine. So we are very easily able to justify, well, if we had that highly skilled person, giving them a $5,000 sign-on bonus is really nothing when you consider over the next 3 to 9 months. Even it didn't even have to be years, 3 to 9 months of what that person would add and the hours that would account for. So we really utilized it to justify a training, sending people to training better, to market better for billboards or anything else for hiring, and really adjusting our benefits program. We really took a look at it from a different approach that kind of said, sometimes those things are hard to justify, benefits or overtime or training and things like that. But if you're able to say, if I spend X dollars and send these people to a week of training or 2 weeks of training, and they can come back, look at the downtime and look at the lost opportunity that we have. Those are hard to track, and that's really what Amper really helped us do.
Yeah, and some of the things that are legitimate concerns is how do you get buy-in from the shop floor? I mean, one of the things that I thought was interesting is y'all implemented an end-on system through Amper, where operators can kind of raise a hand, say there's a process issue, whether it's quality or tooling, or I believe they even have one directly to you, right? Like to escalate problems. Can you share a bit more about why y'all got this going and maybe some interesting anecdotes or stories?
Yep.
Yeah, I can work on this one, Clinton. With this one, it was something that I really was pushing to have, because a lot of our operators would walk into the front office and walk away from the machine to find support, be it maintenance, be it whatever, and it was a lot of wasted time. And so I wanted to have something that we could have, like I said, an and-on to either email or page on the phone, text that there was an issue, so the operator can stay at the floor right at their machine, so the time was a lot less lost. And we definitely seen that when we started implementing this, and it took a little time with that, just like anything else. And then you can see the results too, as far as them coming to that time, because then they got to acknowledge it to see how much time it is taken for each area, to make sure we reduce that amount of time as much as we possibly can. And that was a big issue as far as getting the people out there that need to be out there to help minimize the downtime.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? Once you start tracking not only shop floor productivity and downtime, but even like the response times of your engineers, your maintenance teams, completely changes the mindset of what is the goal of this. And it truly is to look at the shop floor as a system, not just how whether people are keeping the machines running or not.
One really good example of that, Ashok, is we had an opportunity for quality. We spent a lot of time where certain jobs we run complex machine components, and they'd have to go into quality to get first pieced or inspected out. And believe it or not, they would take all the gauges and the print and sample parts, and they would walk it across the factory, put it in our quality lab, set it on the counter, and then they'd walk away. Well, half the time the quality people wouldn't know that the parts are in there waiting to be inspected, and not to mention the travel time and picking it all up. So we actually put a quality tab on here. So now we're bringing the inspection to the machine. So it's just a good example of, when they're getting close to needing their part inspected or first piece, they can bring the quality person to the machine where all the gauges and all the prints and all the parts and everything are sitting, and they kind of know a little bit more. So that was a big opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, that's huge, and I think it really, goes back to the buy-in, right? Like when it comes to collecting that downtime data, which is so valuable, and whether it's buying new machines, changing, your HR plans, just getting that buy-in, I think has been awesome, because I think y'all have almost 100% of your downtime fully labeled throughout the year, right?
And one way too that I try to engage the people is I will not make all the reason codes. I will go on the floor and ask them. I said, I don't want to have a lot of miscellaneous, because that don't help me. I want to have things that capture all the downtime. So I get them engaged to give them ideas, so they're part of the solution. And then I put those together to give us that all compiled, so we can see where our problems are. And then the operators are also engaged in it right along with me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So setup times, I think this is a big challenge for any PMPA member or anyone with high mix, low volume manufacturing. Some of those things you really need to wrangle, and especially with all the different part numbers and all that. Can you share a bit more about how you started tracking setup times, and what are some of the strategies that you used introducing that?
Yeah, I could go over that also. The setup times was something that I worked with the leads and the people on the floor. We went by machines as far as the different machine setups. And then we actually had a sequence for each task and time associated with each task. So then we could break it down if we're seeing a problems with a certain task being too long than it's supposed to be, then we can start working on that problem. But when we first started looking at this, our average setup time was right around 9 hours for an average. And we lowered it down within not too much long time after we implemented this process. We lowered it down to about 7 hours, which is around a 23% reduction. And there's always going to be opportunity for more, and we're working on more now. But this process really helped us as far as really pinpointing where we are having problems with each task and working on those problems to get better.
Right. Makes a ton of sense. So getting just to the math for 1 second. So it looked like, you were able to cut down downtime in 2 different buckets to get to that $1.4 million in savings. Do you want to kind of just share a bit more about kind of what about this, what really kickstarted this, or anything else related to this that you want to share?
Yeah, I can touch on this one also. We broke it down in the planned and unplanned. And as you can see right there, in unplanned, it was $656,000 approximate savings. The biggest things was mechanical downtime. And one of the things we put in place there, because a lot of times we kind of just had an open door for how long we had someone work on a machine. And then I would say you got until noon to work on it. Then we're going to call an attack or whatever to get that priority machine back online. We just put boundaries in there to have more structure to make sure machines weren't down too long before we actually did something positive to make sure we got back online. So that was one of the things that we did there to try to help. And also the process issues. Around the process issues, there's a couple different things we did as far as for sure the end-on cord for pushing so we get the support that we need to on the floor instead of going to try to find them. And then we also bought different things like carts and different things to help it, so it was making it easier for the operator to be successful. And then as far as the plan downtime, we all pretty much know everybody's got the same issue is need to hire. Again, we knew we needed to hire a lot of people, but we didn't really have total hours and cost associated with it. And I will say it did help when we did that. And then we were able to institute different things to make it easier for us to pull more people to Mitotec. And then also another thing we talked about was setups. It's not just one thing that's really helped us. It's a lot of different things that we've worked on to get us where we are today. And it's going to be ever flowing because you always got to keep making improvements. But always, no matter where I've worked, setups were always a big deal where there was a lot of opportunity for improvements. And again, we've seen the improvements there, which really helped get the machines back online so we could make the earned hours and get the parts to the customer as we're scheduled to. So that's just a little overview as far as how we got the results and what are the things we worked on for unplanned and planned. We wanted it as easy as possible, and that's why we broke it up that way to make it simple for us to be able to see it and simple for the operators to see it also.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know we got a couple minutes left, but future state, one of the areas that y'all were discussing with us was like looking at machine rebuilds as kind of a forward-looking plan. So if you want to just share a little bit more on how you're looking at the next couple of months or years in terms of CI and focus, I think that'd be pretty helpful.
Yeah, so we've used, going forward, looking into 2022 and going on, we've been able to take some of the downtime reason codes. We've been able to understand a little bit more. As I mentioned, we have some dated piece of equipment, and being able to take a look at that and say, you know what, here's really what that costs. And it's easy, again, to see what we write the check out for the service tech to come in and fix the machine or the parts. But what you really miss is that lost opportunity. And with Amper, we're able to capture that and put a value to it. So now not only is it easier to justify new pieces of equipment or obsoleting old pieces of equipment, or also rebuilding pieces of equipment as well, and further understanding that. So, Amper really gives you the data, what we've found that, it starts on the machine, it starts with production, but it really stems across many different areas. Like Bob mentioned, setup time, we take a look at that, looking for tools. So then that goes all the way back to how we prep our tools and can we do a better job. So having the data that really helps you justify things is really, really helpful, really great to make business decisions around. And also, it's great to celebrate too. When you have a goal like Bob achieved, a 50% increase in utilization, you're able to go back to your most valuable asset, your people, and you're able to show those results. And it's something everyone can celebrate.
Yeah, so moving
forward for me too, also, as far as the goals moving forward for this next year, right now for unplanned, we have 35 hours. I'm going to bring that down to 25 hours per day. And then the plan's currently at 80, and I want to bring that down to 60. Some other things that we're working through with Amper is the auto counters. We're starting to set that up for the machines for that. Also, adding 6S activities. Right now, we do it on paper that I created, but I want to put more of a one-stop shop and have everything into Amper. And then also working with PM activities and work with that in the future also.
Yeah, that's amazing. Exciting times ahead. I think we've got a lot of collaboration. So really, really excited to continue this journey. And, again, thank you so much for sharing all these best practices with other folks in the PMPA. And I know we're at time, so I just want to make a quick plug that, folks like Mitotec, they started out, doing a free trial just to kind of cut the teeth at using the product, seeing how it works. And, we're offering this to any other PMPA member as well. So if you'd like to take the product for a spin and try it on your shop floor on 2 machines, we're excited to support that. Any kind of closing words from Clinton and Bob before we wrap up?
For me, I appreciate the time to explain, some of the things we did to make the improvements and how Amper did help with the data collection, and then just looking forward to better things moving forward.
Yeah, I would say that we appreciate the opportunity to share our story, and we're really impressed with the way Amper helps us out. Any issues, the technical support is amazing. And you guys are definitely there as a partner, and that's the kind of relationship we appreciate.
Thank you. I have to say the same. No, y'all have been the best. So thank you so much. So I believe the slides will be available, but thank you all for being part of this webinar today. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like to learn more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. That was great. So we're going to open the floor for questions. So again, attendees, please use your questions tab if you have not already done so. And we do have a couple questions here. And the first one is, we have 30 machines in our shop. How many machines should we start with?
We started out with 5. As I mentioned, we picked 5 of our most important. We actually worked through the 30-day trial, work out all the bugs. I guess I would definitely start there. It's great to get a few things worked out, seeing what the data looks like. There's some calibration time that the team works through. But when you add a machine, we send a PO out to Amper, and a little black box comes in the mail. It's literally plug and go. They calibrate it for about a week, and then it's up and going. And we've been doing that ongoing. So again, I would definitely start with 5, but I would be planning on more, because, like I mentioned, you're going to be collecting data that you're going to be like, boy, I wish I had it for that machine over there, because this week that machine's important. So that's what we found out.
All right. Next question is, what was the free trial period like?
Starting out, it was a lot of back and forth with Amper. I actually can't stress enough how great Amper is to work with. A lot of companies, you get something in the mail, and here you install it, and then you really don't hear from them. And we actually have every other week meetings with Amper that's driven by them, by the way, not by us, to keep us on track and make sure we don't have any issues, working through the new features, because there's constantly coming out with new things. But really, that first trial period, you get it in, you get it hooked up, and then there's a little bit of time to collect data, because like I mentioned, it goes on any machine. So they gotta be able to analyze the data when the spindles are running, when the spindles aren't running. So there's a little bit of back and forth there to make sure everything's working out great. And then you're starting to collect the data, and you're starting to understand, green and red, and you're also adjusting some of the other features of how long is the machine down before it turns red, and how long, back and forth. So that 30-day trial period is really a good opportunity to work through what you want to see in your individual shop, and Amper customizes it for that.
All right. And Bob said they are working with auto counters. Can you expand on what that means?
Yes, I can expand. What that does is it actually will hook it into the wiring of the machine. And we got to do something that will cycle. Every time a part cycles, it'll send a signal to this counter. And it actually will count, so the operator does not, because a lot of times they make mistakes, and this will be automatic. So it'll automatically count how many parts is made during that time frame. So it's just like a poke yoke system. It makes it a lot more simple and error free.
Awesome. And I think you touched on this, Clinton, but how easy is Amper to install across your machines?
It's actually pretty simple. It takes a 110 plug-in, and it goes around some of your high draw wires for your spindle motors, or each machine is just a little bit different. I had a manufacturing engineer work with Akshat's team, and we were actually able to install it on every one of our machines with very little support. And then we just kind of work through that trial period. So it's definitely something with a conversation or two that you could do that inside your own factory.
Awesome. And the next one, if there is something you wish you could do differently when getting started with Amper, what would it be?
I can say that I wish you could start with the results because again, like Bob mentioned, getting that buy-in with people, it's tough. And what we found is we ask people to enter in a lot of data, and they're like, "Wow, the machine was down for 15 minutes. Really, I got to put why?" And when you come back around, a couple months later, and all of a sudden we've implemented other things to help them because we've learned from our valuable resource of people that they just want to do a great job. They want to come in, they want to run good parts, they want to be successful each and every day. And when you start doing things that allow them to solve the problems, not having to look for a quality person. So I guess long-winded answers, I wish I could start with some really great results to show them to say, here's where we're going. Because I think the buy-in would happen a lot quicker. And it wasn't that long of a time, but for the buy-in. But that's probably what I would do. I don't know, Bob, if you have something else.
No, I do agree with that. And with me, I just know, even myself, I want to be able to see why I'm doing something extra and make sure that it's worthwhile to do it. And that's what I made sure I gave everybody the data, showed them why we're doing it, and that made a difference. And that then got them in the game to play harder and made sure they got done everything they needed to do to give good data to the system.
Awesome. We got another one here. Can you elaborate on how the pings to quality run through the system? Alerting QC to come to the machine caught my attention.
Yeah. So what we have in there is there's a call light. It's probably about 3 taps on the tablets that we have at the machine to do a call team, and one of them is quality. And what it actually does is you can either send an email right to that quality person, or it can send a text message to a cell phone. I get them right on my cell phone. It pops up as a number and it says, X machine, you're being called to it, the date, the time. So it actually alerts you going right to that machine. That's how we work for quality. And we kind of set up a specific one for that. So yeah, looks like we can kind of see it right here.
Yeah, so essentially you can create all these different teams, and your operators can simply select what team they want to get help from. They can type in a message, and a text message or an email gets sent out to the right person. And as you can see over here, it's going to be tracking the response time of the person arriving at the machine as well. So you're able to understand, for different teams, how often they're being reached out to, how they're responding, and you can essentially either adjust that or maybe even staff up on the support resources if that is too long, or cross-training to the operators.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up us and this week's PMPA Technical Tuesday Solutions webinar. Thank you all for joining us, and a special thank you to you, Bob, Clinton, and Akshat for presenting today. The recorded webinar will be found on pmpa.org later today, and we will see you all next time for the Technical Tuesday Solutions webinar. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.